Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Jeff, and today I'm sitting in the 2022 Mazda Miata MX-5 RF Grand Touring 6MT. And you're probably wondering, what the heck does RF mean? Well, RF actually means that this has the retractable fastpack, which means you can take your Miata from a hardtop and turn it into what is essentially a target top. But before I give you all the details, the breakdowns, goodies, and take a look at everything, first, a quick word from our sponsor.
Today's Auto Hunter Cinema video is brought to you by LandAirSea. Keep tabs on all your valuable assets from the palm of your hand. Remember, with LandAirSea, theft is temporary. Visit LandAirSea.com or call 847-462-8100 to order your LandAirSea GPS unit for your classic vehicle.
Okay, so today we're looking at the 2022 Mazda Miata MX-5 RF Grand Touring 6MT. So this car, as it sits here, is priced at $36,610. But the coolest part about this is the hard top or sort of Targa roof style version, which is actually a retractable fastback. Hence the sort of name RF is what it stands for, retractable fastback, and gives it this little different look, which is actually considerably different exterior look when looking at something like the regular soft top version. So what's new for 2022, right? So this Miata is actually sort of fairly the same as far as exterior goes. Obviously, we have this fantastic soul red metallic paint, which is honestly, in my opinion, one of Mazda's best colors that sits on the exterior of our car here. So what better way to test it? Features a little bit of a black roof there as well. But the exterior is mostly unchanged. There's really not anything that's been added on. We have some 17-inch wheels that seem to be from the Mazda sort of standard wheel factory as far as what they're going for with the Miata here. Really, the only thing that's been added is the Kinematic Posture Control, which is called KPC by Mazda. And what that is essentially, that's a system that when the Miata is going into a cornering instance, for example, or rough terrain when it's trying to turn, it will actually activate the brake very lightly, just a very subtle adding of brake on the inside rear wheel to make sure that it keeps a very linear and performance-oriented, stable line through a corner. So that's pretty much the only thing that's been added for 2022. Other than that, we have another year in what is a fantastic car from Miata. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and let's talk about what makes this car so great. And I figure we should go ahead and start by opening up the engine. So let me go ahead and pop that open for you, and let's talk about what's sitting under the hood of this little beast. So this is your standard 2-liter Skyactiv 4-cylinder from Mazda. Underneath there, we have no extra frills, no covers, but I like the fact that everything is easily accessible here. The Mazda Miata being one of the most tracked and most raced cars in the world, I think it's fantastic that Mazda didn't do anything crazy to try and cover up what's happening here. I think it's actually a really attractive engine bay, all things considered, when you're taking a look at what's going on here. And the fact that it's easily accessible, like I said, is fantastic. But this little guy here, like I said, is a 2-liter Skyactiv inline 4. It's naturally aspirated, which is fantastic. And it has a red line of up to 7,000 RPM, which is actually an improvement. When this car initially came out in 2016, it was rated at about 155 horsepower. Since then, this car is now rated at 181 horsepower with 151 pound-feet of torque. So this thing will move, especially when you consider that this car only weighs a smidge over 2,400 pounds in the RF configuration. I imagine the soft top might be a little bit lighter just because it doesn't have the motors and mechanisms to do the hard top. But man, that is very cool, and the engine is awesome. That's a ton of horsepower for how light the car is, and I believe the earlier car revved to about 6,800, and this is a true 7,000 RPM revving car now with the upgraded version, or the ND2 platform, as it's sometimes referred to as a sort of upgrade to the initial ND. So that's a quick look at what's going on in there. That engine, of course, is mated into a 6-speed manual transmission, which is fantastic in this car. One of the best features. I would think it would be a shame to actually order a Miata. They do have an automatic transmission available, but really it would be a shame not to get the 6-speed manual. It's got a short shifter kit in it, and it feels fantastic. Then just quickly coming to the back of the car, we have our fastback line here for what is the RF portion per se. We've got a little windbreak that actually sits in there as well. And then we have the trunk. So the trunk is not huge by any standards. This is a sports car after all, so it prioritized being small, compact, and lightweight. You can't fit a ton in there. Maybe 2 bags for 2 people for the weekend, which this only fits 2 people, so that makes sense. But that's just a quick look at the exterior and some of the storage features. But let's be honest, you're not buying a Miata for your storage. That's why you would have an SUV. This is a sports car, and it is a fantastic sports car at that. So with that, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the interior. Okay, So now we're sitting in the interior of the 2022 Mazda MX-5 RF, and there's not a ton going on in here. I think that was probably for the sake of weight savings, but it's a sports car and everything is within reach of the driver, which is what you want to do because odds are you're going to be driving this car and you don't want any distractions while you're driving. Just right off the bat, in the gauge cluster here is nothing crazy. We have two analog clusters. So we have your RPMs, which rev all the way up to 7 grand, like I mentioned earlier, and then your speedometer. And then on the left, you actually have a digital infometer that'll have things like your gas and temp and stuff like that, that you can actually change using an info button on the steering wheel and go through things like economy, range, really whatever you wanted to display in that at that moment. And we have a couple different vents here. One of the interesting quirky things that's going on in here is that we have these fully adjustable vents that pretty much do any direction, which is always a nice touch. I've mentioned how much I like these types of vents because you can point them literally anywhere. We have this one vent that is more of the traditional style in the middle. That's a little bit asymmetrical, but I'm assuming that was chosen to make sure they could fit the display, some of the other bits that needed to be added here as far as the UX or the user experience was concerned in the car. Yeah, also have cruise control and some of the other phone buttons available to you. And then we have this nice, beautiful body color here on the door, which looks absolutely fantastic. And it's the perfect driving height if you're just cruising to put your elbow on, rest, and enjoy your driving experience with your Miata, which is fantastic. A lot of the controls and buttons for this is a touchscreen as well, but this has a lot of the physical buttons if you're looking for that, including a volume knob and things like that, which it's nice to see that they didn't just get rid of the buttons. I think it's important to have buttons in your car, so that's fantastic. Obviously, we got your e-brake and your 6-speed manual transmission, which is super easy to grab and feels absolutely fantastic. Another thing that's cool is the pedals are actually so close to each other that it would be really easy to actually do some heel toe if you wanted to make sure you can do a little bit more racy boy stuff if you wanted to do so, because after all, like I mentioned earlier, the Miata is one of the most race cars on the planet. This also has the upgraded 9-speaker sound system all around the car that is actually super cool. It sounds really good, all things considered, and it's just a really nice, simple looking dash. Now you'll notice that there's no actual glove box here. Instead, that sits behind you here. So this folds down. This is your glove box, and the owner's manual where you have all your information and things like that actually fits in there snugly, and there's a little bit of extra room for some other stuff. Then we have another little storage box that sits here, but there's not a ton that you can do in there. It does have some cool coin stuff, which is kind of appreciated, especially if you're going through random tolls. But let me show you my favorite feature about the Miata's interior, and that is these cup holders. I did not just break this cup holder. Instead, you can actually move it up here, which if it's just you in the car and you're driving or whatever, this is fantastic because this can be a little bit awkward. Great if you're just traveling with people or whatever, it works, it's fine, but this is really where you'd probably want your cup holder to be. So it's cool that Mazda will actually let you move it around, but you can actually chuck these in your glove box if you didn't even want them out there at all and just wanted to bump into it. That being said, the touchscreen, the UX has felt a little laggy. I don't know if that's maybe just our car or what the situation is there. It feels a little bit slow at times. The other thing is I've accidentally bumped this button a few times. Now, fortunately, this big button here is actually like the sort of select button, so it's never like changed anything on me by accidentally bumping it, but I've done it time to time while going to reach for the shifter. That being said, generally the proper way to drive is not to keep your hand on the shifter, so odds are you probably won't bump it. You might shift or getting ready to shift, whatever, but that's just a little experience. This one actually has the cancellation for the passenger side window too, which is kind of funny because there's only 2 people and the only other person that'll be in this car with you is within arm's reach. So I would think you'd be able to tell them to cut it out. But that's just my thoughts on that. A little bit quirky, but I love it. The interior is very simple, very focused. Visibility is fantastic, but that's just really a quick look at the interior for the Mazda Miata. But before we get into the driving portion, first, we need to go ahead and raise this top real fast because I want you guys to be able to hear me when we're talking about the driving experience. So what better way to do that than to put this nice top back off, which requires no effort other than me holding the button here to put this top back off. And you can see it clears my head, which is fantastic. I'm about 6 foot just for FYI reasons, so you can see how much room I actually have in here. And there's still some more adjustability that can be done with the seat. This is just where I chose to set it. So yeah, that's a quick look at the interior. So first of all, this car is amazing. I have nothing but good things to say about the driving experience. And so because of that, and because it's a Miata and you should expect the driving experience to be good from a Miata, they've set a very high bar for themselves with the cars that they've built over the years. Why wouldn't it be a fantastic car? Of course it has to be. But one of the coolest things about this is earlier I mentioned how high this car revs. Now just listen to this. That is 7,000 RPM that this car will actually rev to. And the car is actually really zippy. And the best part about all of that, when I did that little pull there and stuff like that, is you can accelerate in this car without breaking the speed limit and still go through some of your gears, making it a very enjoyable driving experience. There's a lot of cars in today's market where the cars accelerate so fast or the gearing is so long that you're doing 60 in second gear, and so you can't even get to use the car in sort of a thrilling, spirited driving sense. But that's not a problem with the Mazda Miata. Now, this car isn't slow by any means, but it's very fun. This car is quick. It'll actually keep up with more than you would assume. The 0 to 60 in this car is actually just below 60 seconds, although Mazda will tell you 0 to 60 is somewhere between 6.2 and 6.4 seconds. I would expect that the soft top convertible version of this car would actually be a little bit faster, just because there's a little bit less weight, because they don't have the mechanical mechanisms, motors, extra weight that gets added with the hard top version of this car. But that's not a big deal, because I doubt it's that big of a difference anyways. We're on the freeway here. There's not a ton of wind noise that gets added. It's actually, I like the sort of openness of the car. It makes you feel more connected with it. Everything inside the interior is right where you need it as a driver, which is fantastic. And the pedals are close enough where you can actually do some heel-toe shifting and things like that if you wanted to do so and work on your downshifts. But man, does this shifter feel amazing. It's actually kind of a short shifter, but everything feels like it clicks into place beautifully when you drive this car. It feels ridiculously good. Every time I park the car, the next thing I start thinking about is when I get to drive this car again, because it's just that good, and I'm always thinking about how much fun I have with the car. So I can definitely tell you that if you ever get the experience to drive a Mazda Miata, you should do it, no matter the generation. It doesn't even have to be an ND, although this is a really good car. This might possibly be one of the best cars that you can currently buy from a dealership today. This thing is fantastic. I love everything about it. There's nothing that says it needs more horsepower. The car weighs so little that 181 horsepower is a lot. And at the end of the day, power to weight ratio is more important than the actual number itself. Oh yeah, look at that. The car just, oh gosh, it's so good. There's so much to enjoy about this car. And like, it just clicks into place, almost like when you watch rally drivers and they're just slamming the gears. It feels like you can do that. Like the shifter just goes right where you want it to go for your next gears, which is fantastic. Oh, this car is just so good. I can't say enough good things about it. It's rear-wheel drive, standard with a 6-speed manual transmission, lightweight sports car, and it's available at an affordable price. The RF is a little bit more expensive than the soft top, which comes in around, I believe, somewhere in there $27,000, $28,000 for the standard soft top, versus the RF starts at about $35,000, because obviously there's some added complexity with that system back there, but it is really nice to have. The amount of ease and just getting to raise and lower the top is super nice. And it's kind of cool. I personally think the RF looks a little bit better, but yeah, that's just a quick look. But man, this thing is fantastic to drive. If you ever get the option to drive a Miata, definitely do it. I encourage you to head to a Mazda dealership and check this thing out, because it is so good to drive. Available with a manual transmission, which is a dying breed these days, unfortunately, but it's a good one at that. And the car is quick. You'll enjoy it. It's not likely to get you in trouble, although you definitely can get in trouble with this thing, so be careful. The rear end, it'll definitely burn rubber, so to speak, if you take traction control off and cancel out some of the KPC modes and things like that I talked about, but you don't notice any of it. You don't notice the car adding the braking. It's just another thing that Mazda's added to sort of help tune some of the handling and the downshifts. And the synchros in this car are actually really good. You don't even need to do any extra work while driving. It's a really nice experience all in all. So with that, if you guys enjoyed that video, go ahead and smash that like button for us. Really appreciate it. And get subscribed as we release videos like this regularly. And I'm curious, go ahead and drop the comments below on what your thoughts are of this 2022 Mazda Miata RF. Or if you've got one, I want to know what you think of it. So with that, thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.